Hi, this is Rachel from Mini Ministry. I want to talk to you tonight about Matthew 22:39, which tells us that the second greatest commandment is to love our neighbor as ourselves. But when we really take apart this section of scripture, we have to really think about two key things. Who is our neighbor, and what does it mean to love ourselves? So, the first part, who is your neighbor? So, your neighbor is not just the person who you live next door to. That may be your literal neighbor. We have neighbors next door to us, and they're surely our neighbor, and we should love them. But your neighbor is meant to be anybody around you. Your husband, your wife, your children, your parents, your coworkers, your boss, the lady at the supermarket, the person driving in the lane next to you. Anybody you come across and that you meet is your neighbor. Too often I think we sit there and we think about our neighbor and we forget that it's someone that we know or someone that we already have a relationship with. But our neighbor is anybody around us. Like any city, you don't know everybody in that city, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be nice to everybody that you come across. So that's the first part. The second part is something that I really want to highlight. I've been going through Facebook the past couple days. I've been on spring break. My son is on spring break. And so I've had some downtime and I've spent probably way more time on Facebook than I need to. And I don't usually go on Facebook much anymore because it just engulfs me in my time. But I've been spending time on there and I've noticed that there is a serious lack of love for ourselves and for how we treat others. So when Jesus tells us to love our neighbor as ourselves, I have to sit there and think that maybe the problem is not fully loving our neighbor. It's that we don't know how to love ourselves. I see post after post and I hear conversations of people who don't treat themselves with love and respect. You, the person I'm talking to, you, are beautiful and awesome and amazing. And for you to think of yourself less is not to give due diligence to God, because God created you with a purpose. He has a plan for you. And you are made in the image of God. So to think anything less of you is just a hindrance to God and to what He's done. But more than that, we get too bogged down with all the negatives of ourselves. We don't look right. We don't do this. We don't have this kind of job. We don't drive this kind of car. And I stop and think and realize that almost all of those things become highly either materialistic or it doesn't matter because that doesn't impart to who you are. Let me give you an example. I am a little chubby. I would like to be a little skinnier. It would be nice. It'd fit in my clothes a little nicer, and I'm sure my husband would appreciate it. But that doesn't take away from who I am. I am still a servant of God. I am still a mom and a wife and a writer and a teacher. And all these things, my weight does not impart to who I am or how I can act. I can choose to be joyful. I can choose to be happy. Okay, that is a choice. But unfortunately, we have let all those things impart that choice and become how we act. I am so sick of negativity. And if we really stopped and thought about how we were treating others, if we were treated in that same regard, how would we act and react? If you're sitting there having an argument with somebody and you are using slanderous words and being rude and disrespectful, but if you stopped and that person treated you in that exact same way, how would you react? I'm pretty sure it probably wouldn't be nice. And yet, I see people who do react nice and they choose not to be that way. They choose not to get entrapped into your insanity. All this to say, my friends, I don't want us to hate each other at all. I've been reading all this week the life of Martin Luther King Jr. and what he did for the civil rights movement. And while what he accomplished through civil rights is amazing, his journey through faith is very interesting, and even the sins he acknowledged that he confessed that he did. He was human too. But something that was amazing that he said was talking about how if we don't love ourselves, how can we expect to preach love? So I want to encourage you guys to do that exact same thing. How can you expect to preach the love of Christ if you are not loving yourself and loving others? We all have opportunities to love, to share, to grow, but we need to start with ourselves. We need to love ourselves. And that's the hardest thing, is to love yourself. We all struggle with it, but in order for us to correctly love others, we need to love ourselves. It also says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We really need to live that way. That's not just words in a book. That's not just a good thought. That's something we actually need to live out. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think it's probably been 15, maybe 20 years ago now. Everyone went around with bracelets saying WWJD on it. What would Jesus do? And that's a really good kind of motto to live by. We need to be the light in every aspect of our lives. But we cannot do that if we're negative, if we don't show love. Only love can drive out darkness, okay? Only love can do that. Light can drive out the darkness, and love is the light, okay? And Jesus is the light. Be like Jesus, okay, people? It sounds simple, I know. And it can be hard, but it really isn't that hard, okay? Love yourself, love others, and treat others the way you want to be treated, okay? And by loving others and treating others the way you want to be treated, you're loving God, because that's the second greatest commandment he gives us in the New Testament. So you are loving God, and you're showing God's love to others. So, my brothers and sisters, take some time today to love yourself, to love those around you, to love your neighbor as yourself. Next time you see that lady in the supermarket that looks like she's about to lose your mind, just smile. When you're sitting there and you go through the drive-through lane and the young person behind the counter is grumpy, just smile. Tell them to have a blessed day. Because we can change the world. We have the love of Christ in us. We can be the light. And frankly, there's no reason for us not to. And there's nothing better than that. You guys have a great day. Have a blessed day. And enjoy this holy week of Easter as we reflect and fully indulge on the cross of Christ and the sacrifice he made for us. That video will be coming tomorrow. Have a blessed day.